Many of us are working remotely from home during the COVID-19 pandemic to adhere to safe social distancing practices. But from a cybersecurity perspective, this creates new opportunities for hackers. How? Because it's highly likely you're compromising yourself and your company through the use of an unsafe and unsecure home office network. If this comes as a surprise and right now you're thinking, oh, is my home office network not secure? The answer almost certainly is no, it's not secure. This also compromises our company's ability to protect its confidential information and intellectual property. Today we're talking with two cybersecurity experts who have over 50 years combined experience in this area. They'll discuss where home office networks are typically unsecure, how hackers exploit these vulnerabilities, how they select their victims, and why software solutions alone aren't enough. And most importantly, they'll give you specific recommendations of what you can do to avoid becoming a victim of personal identity theft. Stay with us. Okay, first question to you, Kyle. How has the shift to remote access and work from home affected cybersecurity, both for the companies that people work for and for themselves, just individually?
In the beginning of the COVID-19, companies, they really got it with a kind of a surprise. The company will have to have their staff working from home, and to do that, they will have to set up a lot of the remote access and the VPN, virtual private network. Some of the companies, they do have people working from home before, right? So they just need to figure out how to increase the bandwidth of their remote access. Some of them don't have the policy, don't have the culture of people working from home, so they'll have to really set up the remote access from scratch. For those people, they probably don't think of the security as their top priority. Right now, they just want to get the employee be productive and say, here are the way to do it. Go home and start doing it. And it is not easy for the company that don't have the work from home culture, right, to set up the remote access very quickly. So once they go through that hurdle and say, okay, here are the things that you have to do, now they have to think about how to protect their confidential information, the intellectual properties. Now they have to put in the policies to make sure that they get their staff understand, like, these are the things that you should be doing and this should not be doing, right, to protect the information, the company information. And also, you have to make sure that staff are actually trained once you give them the policy. The employees, they're actually working a little bit more from home for their personal, so they have to make sure that they're protect themselves against the identity theft, because that is a big problem these days. There are attackers that are trying to get your information, online banking or investments, or try to compromise your computers.
Okay, so Steve, the next question to you. What are some of the security deficiencies that you're seeing in typical home office networks?
Well, most of the typical deficiencies we see, Paul, are no established channel segregation in the Wi-Fi routers between the work and the personal use, which is a big one. Many of the home Wi-Fi routers that we see have out-of-date firmware, and that's important to keep that up to date because it controls the whole Wi-Fi router and patches security holes in those. We also see that there's malware and software programs that are on a lot of home systems, and that's a serious problem, as well as a lot of systems are not patched with their operating system updates. That goes along with both Windows devices and Apple devices,
Gotcha.
iPhones, iPads, and laptops.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a follow-up question to that because I think quite some number of years ago, people who owned and ran with Apple machine used to think that they were somewhat immune from virus and malware and spyware. Is that no longer the case?
Yeah, that's no longer the case. That was, you could get away with that back about 20 years ago, but nowadays it's fair game for both Windows and Apple devices as they're being more introduced into corporate environments now.
Mm-hmm.
We also see home Wi-Fi networks many times are unsecured, and that basically anyone in range of those home Wi-Fi networks can see those Wi-Fi networks appear on their wireless detection systems, their wireless connections. And many times if they're available and you're not properly secured, people can jump on those Wi-Fi networks. And that can lead to hackers invading devices on your home network, as we have the Internet of Things these days, all kinds of connected devices. If so many people jump on your home network, and a lot of that traffic will start to slow down the overall performance of your network. A lack of good password security policies in place. People just aren't protecting their devices the way that they should with good, strong passwords. Earlier, the Windows 10 devices, computers rather, many of them are not up to date in terms of their operating system patches, but also don't have their default privacy settings configured beyond the default, which is basically having the microphone enabled, your webcam enabled. And people just don't realize that those are always usually on and able to be used to record if a hacker was able to access those devices remotely. We also see that there's no data backup in place for a lot of protected devices in the home. And that's a big problem because all you need to do is lose some files or be infected with a cryptolocker virus, and then you'll have no access to your data and no recovery points to restore back to. I think we talked about old firmware software on those wireless devices, your routers at home. Many of them, after they've been in play for so many years, the manufacturer no longer makes any further updates for those devices. So it's important for every so many years to go out and invest in a new Wi-Fi router. And there you can pick one up for less than $100 these days. So it's really no big out-of-pocket cost. There's no delineation between sharing computers between kids and parents in the home. Many times parents will have financial software on their home computers, and they're also at the same time allowing their kids to use those computers and download other malware and whatnot. So you can see the security implications of that.
Right. So I guess a quick follow-up, that's a pretty lengthy list. How common are these situations that you see?
Well, Paul, we actually see it's about 9 out of 10 times people fail to secure their personal devices, so it's a big problem.
It's a big problem. Okay. Kyle, the next question to you. How do the issues that Steve raised create opportunities for hackers, both to exploit the company that they work for and to compromise themselves to identity theft?
Yeah, the attackers, they were going to attack the unsecured devices. So if the company staff have the unsecured devices, they forgot to do the patch, or they have vulnerabilities that are just kind of exposed out there, they're going to, attackers definitely looking for the weakest link, right? Weakest attacking points. So they'll try to find, and if you have patched devices, for example, they're going to try to take advantage of that. Phishing is going to be big, especially nowadays, the COVID-19 related. So, or the financial relief, I think brought up earlier. Those are going to be the easy target. So whoever click on it, they're going to get targeted and being planted for the malware or the virus onto the company devices, the staff's devices. They are going to use phishing to steal your credentials as well. So they will be able to try to get into the company devices or try to steal the company information. So, and the ransomware, nowadays you probably hear a lot of ransomware. Ransomware is when the attacker actually try to encrypt your machine, right? Whether it's personal or company machine, then they're going to send a note to you, say, pay us this many Bitcoins, then we'll actually send you a decryption key, then you can decrypt and get your files back. Right? And also the camera nowadays, if they're attacking you or try to steal the company information or try to listen to some of the recording, they might take advantage of the camera and the microphone, right? And if you're, just think about if you're in the online board meeting, if you have one of the machine that's being compromised, somebody might be listening in to your board meeting, right? Onto the attackers. Steve mentioned about weak passwords. If they get access to your computer, or if you have a very easy guessable passwords, then it will probably get compromised that way as well. Employees' personal identity theft, I think, is going to be one of the biggest risks because, again, there are emails and there are the passwords if you don't have two-factor authentication, additional, for example, like an SMS message to have a second-factor authentication. It might be a little easier. And if you don't have a secure password, you'll be compromised. And emails or your social media account like Twitter or Facebook, some Instagram. How is it going to be impacting you if you are somebody that's important, senior management, have your own Twitter account? Maybe you will be hijacked, right? If you are somebody that's in a senior management position, you don't want to have somebody taking over your Twitter account and just start tweeting, hey, company is for sale or company is not doing too well. So that will impact your stock price, or if you're a public company, stock price or performance, right? So there's always that type of possibility. And online gaming, if you have an online gaming account that's could be taken over. Online games now, they all have the things that you can purchase in the game, right? You can actually, they do have the money, the real monetary value. So it's actually getting more popular for the hackers out there as well. And last, if you have a cryptocurrency on your computer or a crypto wallet, it might be a target for the hackers to steal your crypto wallet as well.
Right, okay. This question's for you, Kyle. How would a hacker go about targeting someone? How do they choose who they want to target and go after? Is someone who works at a small company at risk as much as a senior or C-level executive who works at a large multinational or international company?
So there are two ways of seeing this. So mostly hackers, they don't discriminate. They usually go find the easiest target, whether you're small or large companies. That's usually the case, unless you're somebody that's senior executive and specifically targeted. But I would say most likely they just scan on the internet and see who is actually vulnerable, who is actually have the weakest security, have the vulnerability. Those are the ones that are targeted. In terms of how they actually go about attacking, what kind of tools, they usually have the tools available, freely downloadable from the internet. And also they could have some of the malware available, downloadable, or you can actually buy them from the dark web, or actually you can hire a hacker from the dark web. Right. So usually they scan the public network and or send out the phishing emails. Just try to actually lure these people to click on the email and get compromised, and they'll be able to install the malware on those devices, compromised devices.
Right. And it certainly seems like the current spike in unemployment and the increased attack surface exposure in remote access and working from home scenarios, we're bound to see a large jump in company breaches and personal identity theft coming on the horizon if it's not happening already.
Yep, absolutely. There's a big increase these days.
Okay. Okay, this question, actually, I'll start with you, Steve, and then get Kyle's perspective on this as well, please. From the company's perspective, do security software solutions like threat detection and endpoint security solutions, even the ones that are AI enhanced that are out on the market these days, do they compensate for deficiencies in employees' home networks and devices?
Well, actually, Paul, data security is really about people, processes, and technology. It really is. It's a shared responsibility between both the company and the end users.
Okay.
Even with the best and most current security solutions in place, end users are often undertaking risky actions with their computers that end up compromising their system in the entire information system. So that's a real problem. This is where the importance of end user acceptable computer use policies are really needed in environments, so that people know what is expected when they're using the computer on site in the business, on the business infrastructure, as well as in their home network. Just because they're on their home network, that does not mean that they can be laxed about those acceptable use policies.
And just to add that when company actually define the policies, train the people on policies, they also have to make sure that these policies are being followed, or they're actually being effective. Right, so it's better to have some kind of a periodic assessment just to see how well are these policies being followed. And also in terms of the technology wise, are they actually being effective? So it's good to actually do a assessment. So something like a vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, which is to see like, hey, these technologies supposed to be blocking the viruses or the vulnerability, detect the vulnerabilities, blocking these attacks. Are they being effective? So we can actually do some penetration testing, which is to test these technologies, these protection mechanisms, the security measures, if they are actually being effective. Phishing, we can actually do some phishing social engineering, just to see if they are not clicking on the phishing emails.
Okay. Okay, question to Steve. What are some specific recommendations for employees now to improve the security of their home networks?
Paul, what we recommend is making sure that everybody is updating their firmware on their routers at their home according to manufacturer recommendations.
Okay.
And if you can't update the firmware on your wireless router for any reason, or if it's out of date, then we highly recommend people consider replacing it with our newer model.
Mm-hmm.
We also highly recommend that people install antivirus and anti-malware software on both Windows and Mac machines if you don't already have it. Make sure that those are up to date and that are actually working. Many times people just don't realize that they think they have antivirus, but it's long been outdated or it's not even actually working on their machine. We also recommend people do the operating system updates for both the Windows and Apple machines, and all their Apple devices for that matter, as well as your mobile devices. We also recommend not clicking on links and emails that you don't know from. Even if you do get an email from someone that you think is part of your trusted network, just be sure that you actually look at the full email address of where it's coming from. to make sure that it's not some just spoofing another email
Sure.
address. We recommend that you don't share your company laptop that you brought home with family members. That is for business use only, and it should not be used interchangeably with personal information on it. Lock the screen when you go away from your machine. So just in case somebody won't accidentally jump on your machine and think that they can use it to look something up real quick and then potentially cause a security breach there.
Okay.
We also recommend that you notify your IT support professional that's supporting your computer, whether it's a third-party service provider or your corporate IT department. Let them know right away. I'm sure they'll be much happier to know than find out later when damage is already done. We also recommend considering segregating your home network into a regular production network as well as a guest network. So you keep your stuff segmented from other personal stuff, or if you have guests coming over to your home, have them use your guest network.
Right.
We also recommend considering buying a business grade firewall if you're doing a lot of business related activities at your home related to the company that you work for. You might want to buy a business grade Wi-Fi router that gives way more protection than your regular low end cost Wi-Fi routers. Business grade router can range anywhere from $300 to $1,200.
Okay.
And then it steps up from there.
Okay, one thing I'd like to add on to this, gentleman, and Kyle, you had mentioned this the last time we were talking, and I wasn't aware of this, that people who own Apple MacBooks, sometimes they can go to their ISP and get antivirus, anti-malware solutions for free directly from them. Can you just talk to that for just a moment?
Yes, so most likely when you have a cable modem or the big cable or the fiber providers, they'll provide the free antivirus software. Norton or McAfee, these type of free software. Basically, it's free for the subscribers. So you can download from their site, and they usually give you license to install. I know some of them allow you to install up to like 5 or 10 devices. So
Great.
It's a pretty good deal. It's free.
Yeah,
So
great tip.
take advantage of that.
Okay, all right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We hope you found this discussion helpful. Please know we're available to help remediate the issues we talked about today. And we perform the security assessments, penetration tests, and social engineering consulting services that Kyle mentioned, and the secure network configurations that Steve talked about. We're also interested in knowing your feedback about today's discussion and suggestions for cybersecurity topics you'd like us to cover in our upcoming video series. You can contact us through our website, and we hope that you will. Thanks for watching. Be safe, everyone.